This is a CBS7 First Alert Weather Day. Now, an update from the First Alert Weather Center.
Well, if you've stepped outside this evening, you know that it's cold. In fact, we have another cool front moving across the area, stirring up that wind once again. So wind chill values are dropping, if you can believe that. Wind chill warnings are in effect for wind chills as low as 16 degrees from the central northern Permian Basin. This does include Midland, Odessa, and Big Spring, as we could be looking at, again, those wind chill values ranging from 0 to 15 to 16 below zero overnight tonight. And outside of this, wind chill advisories for wind chill as low as 11 degrees for Crane, Monahans down towards Pecos, Fort Stockton, the Alpine area. Again, avoid being outside if you can. It is extremely cold out there, and be sure to cover up all exposed skin because hypothermia could develop very quickly. As we are looking at the live iCam in Odessa, moving around quite a bit. A little bit of that dust stirred up once again as another cold front has rolled in. Now, we don't have a report in Odessa or Andrews. It looks like the wind instruments have frozen up, but we've had gusts upwards to 30 miles an hour plus out of the Miller National Air and Spaceport in Big Spring, gusts to 31 in Hobbs. And you take into account the temperatures right now, the actual temperatures are into the upper teens as that next surge of Arctic air is starting to roll in across the Permian Basin. So the wind, the temperature leading to wind chill values, it feels like 1 below zero out of the Midland National Air and Spaceport, 2 below zero right now in Big Spring. And this is just the start of what we're going to be dealing with overnight tonight. Those wind chill values will be as low again, getting down around 10 below zero or even worse before we see things improve coming up tomorrow morning. Make sure you have the CBS7 First Alert Weather app downloaded and ready to go on your iPhone, your Android phone, so that way you know the latest wind chill values, temperatures, and everything else as you head out first thing in the morning to go to work and school.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for joining us for CBS 7 News at 9 on the CW and live on the CBS 7 YouTube. We'll have another First Alert weather update for you in just a few minutes, but for now we turn to a developing story out of Midland. The extreme temperatures have caused a flood at the Midland County Courthouse. According to county officials, the weather caused damage to the courthouse's fire extinguisher system. They began to leak and then flood the building. The courthouse is closed until further notice. And UTBB is experiencing a similar situation at their engineering building. The university took to social media to let students know that the building will be closed. And it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Many people across the nation celebrated, including right here in West Texas. The Black Cultural Council of Odessa held a celebration that included lunch, praise, and marching. CBS 7's Noe Ortega was at that event and spoke to locals about what this day means to them. Noe?
People of all ages were present at the Woodson Community Center to celebrate the life of Martin Luther King Jr. and the message he left behind.
Instilling the values, reminding the kids, as long as the kids are involved, I think we're good.
Members of the community marched down Dixie Boulevard to spread a message.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Athletes from Permian High School were present to show their support, and younger kids decided to join the march and make posters to send a message.
To get the world together, man, I just hope everybody can spend time with each other. I hope people don't bully each other, stuff like that.
Galt was one of many kids at the march, but some people have been spreading Martin Luther King's message for years. Frizella Whitaker just turned 95 years old. However, she still has a lot of fight left in her, especially with more and more people celebrating this day every year.
On a day like today, with all these people that are out and the young people that are participating, I'm happy.
Apart from marching, there was singing,
ring with the horn.
Praising,
The risen Savior we say, and God bless you. Amen.
To honor Martin Luther King and his message for freedom, equality, justice, and love.
I'm delighted by it, because I realize I'm a recipient of history made by somebody who was so unselfish.
This event ended with a candlelight vigil at Woodson Park. In Odessa, I'm Noe Ortega, CBS 7 First Alert News.
This morning, several Midlanders gathered at the MLK Jr. Community Center to honor the man it was named for. CBS 7's Isabella Garriga was there this morning to get the sights and sounds. Isabella?
Attendees filled the tables at the celebration, including many elected officials who spoke about the meaning behind today's celebration. Martin Luther King's legacy even sparked performances from Midland's youth. One attendee from Dallas, Dr. Terry Ford, says Midland's gathering was a good example for how others should celebrate today.
Very pleased to be here in Midland, because what I'm seeing in Midland is what we really could use across the nation. We have all walks of life coming together for one unified effort, and that's to move the legacy of Dr. King forward.
Midland's Youth Club was out in full force to celebrate. 17-year-old LaShawna Johnson has been participating in events like these for 6 years.
Well, that's something that's kind of been instilled in me for like a long time, just my parents knowing how many opportunities that I have thanks to leaders like Martin Luther King. And I really like coming to these events to really just keep his legacy going.
Today was also about the contributions of the Negro Business and Professional Women's Club of Midland, which have no end in sight.
There's been a lot of changes, not just within this organization, but in the city and around the world. So it's just been multiple things. And as our theme says, moving forward with the purpose, we've got this. And meaning by that is whatever comes before us, we've got it.
This is the first of many events for the club this year. In March, the national president and district president will both join West Texans for the first time ever. For CBS 7 First Alert News, I'm Isabella Garriga.
And it's a story you'll only see on CBS 7. 95 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia. The impact he made has touched the lives of millions of Americans. And right here in West Texas, one woman named Dr. Viola Coleman also made an impact on the community that is still felt today. CBS 7's Tyler Poglich met with Conrad Coleman, the son of Dr. Coleman, to learn more about how Viola changed Midland.
To many, she is known as a trailblazer and an advocate for justice and equality. Dr. Viola Coleman will forever be a symbol of hope in the West Texas community.
So it's amazing to hear all of the wonderful things she did for so many Midlanders, and that they remember her. On a day like today, we're honoring Dr. Martin Luther King.
Dr. Viola Coleman was born in Louisiana on September 25, 1919. After attending Meharry College, Coleman tried to open up a practice in her hometown of New Iberia, but could not. On her way to California for work, she visited a friend in Fort Worth and learned about a new hospital in Midland looking for African American physicians.
So my mother took the train from Fort Worth to Midland, went to the hospital, Midland Memorial, and asked if they would give her privileges. And they looked at her kind of funny and said, "Why wouldn't we?" So Midland was good to my mother, and in return, my mother wanted to give back to this town that gave so much to her.
Dr. Viola Coleman changed the lives of many during her time in Midland. Being the first black female doctor at Midland Memorial Hospital, she cared for her patients like her own family. She never turned anyone away, even if they were not able to pay for their medical care.
When my mother was practicing, she would treat people regardless of ability to pay. She had patients that would pay her in eggs, and they would pay her in whatever they had, and she never turned a patient away.
But Coleman did more than just change the medical industry out here in West Texas. When Coleman was looking for schools, she applied to LSU Medical School, but at the time, Louisiana was highly segregated. Despite that, Coleman applied to LSU Medical School and was denied admission. She went to future Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall to sue the school, but lost. When Coleman came to West Texas, she was a part of a lawsuit that helped desegregate Midland ISD.
So that the Coleman School is a legacy from that, and that she was concerned about education for all Midlanders, black, browns, and whites. And I think it's important that we remember that on a day designed to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, one of our great, if not the greatest, civil rights leader in the history of this country.
Conrad says Midland Community Health Services is looking to move the current Coleman Clinic to a bigger space east of the current location, which will allow them to treat more patients. For CBS 7 First Alert News, I'm Tyler Poglich.
Martin Luther King III laid a wreath at his father's memorial today. On this national holiday, everyone is encouraged to give back and volunteer.
We're just going around this area right here and picking up trash and anything else to just clean up the community.
The legacy of Dr. King really was rooted in the meaning of service behind it.
Literally, as cliche as it is, be the change you want to be.
As you can imagine, bad weather in many parts of the country forced some MLK events to be canceled. You're looking now at today's top headlines. They're shown here in real time with real viewers on CBS7.com. You can see all these stories and more just by downloading our app or visiting our website at CBS7.com. And still ahead, the deaths of 3 migrants are adding more fuel to a border dispute between state and federal officials. We have the latest on the story from across Texas next on CBS7 News at 9. In some state news, the Biden administration says authorities in Texas physically barred Border Patrol agents from trying to save a woman and 2 children who drowned near Shelby Park at the U.S.-Mexico border in Eagle Pass. Border Patrol had been using it to process migrants, but last week, Texas Governor Gregg deployed National Guard soldiers to the public park, intensifying a feud between state and federal officials over the U.S. border policy.
The president might have to take executive actions, declaring a crisis, national crisis at the border, and do what needs to be done to shut that border down and secure it until we can get a handle, or until the legislature can come to an agreement.
Texas officials claim the migrants had already drowned when Border Patrol requested access, but the Biden administration is demanding the state remove all barriers to the park by Wednesday. The White House says the DOJ will consider all other options available to restore Border Patrol access there if Texas does not comply. And we have an election update for you now. CBS News is projecting that former President Donald Trump has won the 2024 Iowa caucuses. The candidates maximized every last minute on the campaign trail today, visiting caucus locations and diners. Heading into the caucuses, former President Donald Trump had held a commanding lead in state polling. According to CBS News entrance polling, the economy was the most important issue to voters, and closely followed by immigration.
Well, back at home in West Texas, it is a bitterly cold night out there. Wind chill values below 0 now as more Arctic air is rolling in. Any relief in sight? We'll talk about that coming up next.
This is a CBS7 First Alert Weather Day. Now, an update from Chief Meteorologist Tom Tiefertiller.
More Arctic air is spilling into West Texas behind another cold front that's moving through right now, so temperatures are already down into the upper teens across the area. 19 in Odessa, 18 out towards the city of Midland, International Air and Spaceport, 17 in Big Spring right now, as we do have winds gusting upwards to 30 miles an hour, not only from the Permian Basin, but down into the Trans-Pecos area at the present time, and that is dropping wind chill values. Feels like 16 in Fort Stockton. It feels like 1 below 0 in Midland. About the same thing in Odessa, 2 below over towards the Big Spring area, and 2 above in Seminole right now, and these are only going to get worse as the rest of the night progresses. Now, what's going on is we're seeing another disturbance roll out into the east, so that's tapping more Arctic air and spilling it into the state of Texas and West Texas with some gusty winds right now across the area. The good news is it looks like we're going to see one more bitterly cold day before start to get under the influence. This ridge of high pressure is going to start to sweep some of that Arctic air and modify it a little bit. And that's really going to help us out get well above freezing as it looks like later on Wednesday. Now, right now across the state of Texas, there's been big time travel problems from Dallas-Fort Worth, East Texas, down towards Southeast Texas. Numerous interstates are closed in and around the Houston area due to icy conditions right now that extend all the way down towards the Corpus Christi area where they had some issues on some state highways. The good news is most of the moisture is moving into the Ark-La-Mist now and moving out of the state of Texas, but travel could be hampered here over the next 24 hours across the eastern half of the state. Everybody is cold. It's now getting into the Presidio Valley and far west Texas, but you see freezing temperatures all the way down into portions of deep south Texas. Here's what we're looking at on the forecast lows overnight tonight into the single digits. These are the actual temperatures, not the wind chill. So bitterly cold conditions to wake up to in the morning. You add in that wind, we're going to see wind chill values down around -10 to -15 to start the day on Tuesday before we start to see a little bit of improvement by the afternoon hours. But again, another bitterly cold day is on the way coming up for tomorrow afternoon. So here's what we are looking at. Wind chill warnings in effect for wind chills as low as 16 below 0 across portions of the central northern Permian Basin into southeast New Mexico. That means you need to avoid time outside. If you do have to go out, cover all exposed skin, dress in layers. Same thing going for the wind chill advisory there across the southern Permian Basin into the Trans-Pecos and the mountain areas for those wind chill values dropping down as low as 11 below 0. Bitterly cold conditions tonight with those wind chill values, especially dangerously cold, below 0 to wake up to as we'll have gusty northeast winds. And it looks like for tomorrow, most areas north and east of the Pecos River not getting above freezing. So again, we're going to see wind chill values into single digits, if not near 10 degrees for most of the day, even though the wind is going to start to calm down quite a bit by the afternoon hours. Here's what we're looking at. Finally, some improvement coming up about noontime, 1 o'clock on Wednesday, getting above freezing there and back into the mid-50s, 60s coming up on Thursday before another shot of Arctic air rolls in, but nothing to the levels that we're seeing right now across the area, but making for a cold start to the weekend as we're looking at a dry forecast here over the next few days. But again, tonight, into the early morning hours, avoid time outside if you can because those wind chill values, again, ranging from 0 to 15 below 0 across portions of the Permian Basin.
Still ahead, U.S. airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen could have an impact on the global economy. We take a look at this next in your oil and gas news on CBS 7 News at 9. Attacks by Iran-backed militants in the Red Sea have effectively closed one of the globe's main trade routes to container ships. And now oil tankers are starting to avoid the southern Red Sea, causing gas prices to potentially rise. Jen Sullivan breaks down the impact.
The sound of UK fighter jets lifting off, part of a US-led effort to go after Houthi militants based in Yemen. Backed by Iran, these militants, who say they're taking revenge for Israel's war on Hamas and Gaza, have been attacking container ships in the Red Sea since November. It's one of the world's most important trade routes. The violence has forced commercial shipping companies to avoid the area. And now, oil companies are following suit.
What you're seeing is a number of those oil tankers are no longer traversing the Red Sea.
Oil prices are already starting to tick higher. On Friday morning, U.S. crude climbed as much as 4.5% to $75.25 a barrel.
We see that the shipping is more restricted in the Red Sea. The price of oil is going up.
Gas prices remain relatively low for now. According to AAA, the national price of gas was $3.07 on Monday. But low prices may not be around for long.
We use about 100 million barrels of oil every single day, and that will certainly have an effect on price.
Summer says roughly 18 million barrels of oil travel every day through what's known as the Strait of Hormuz. But the situation in the Red Sea is so tenuous that oil tankers and commercial ships are taking a totally different route, all the way around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. That adds days to the journey. Energy prices could spike, and so could the price at the pump. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Still ahead, we are taking a final look at your first alert forecast, plus reminding you of a few warming shelters in the West Texas area. Before we go, if you're in need of somewhere warm during these extreme temperatures, there's a warming shelter at the Ector County Sheriff's Office West Annex. This will remain open through Wednesday, but could be extended due to the weather. The next one is the Salvation Army of Odessa. This shelter is open Monday through Friday and offers additional overnight beds for those experiencing homelessness. And the Salvation Army of Midland also has a warming shelter that will remain open as long as the temperatures stay below 42 degrees. They also provide additional overnight beds.
And good advice there in case you do need a warming shelter, because we're seeing dangerously cold conditions. Overnight tonight, wind chill values could be as cold as 16 below zero across the central northern Permian Basin. Temperatures actually dropping down to about 8 degrees across the Midland Odessa area first thing on Tuesday morning. So dangerously cold. First off, if you have to be outside, cover all exposed skin, dress in layers, as we're only going to get up to about 29 tomorrow, so another sub-freezing day on the way, and those wind chill values staying about 10 to 15 degrees even in the afternoon hours. We finally see a little bit of relief coming up by noontime on Wednesday into Thursday, but in the meantime, though, it's a good thing to stay in and stay warm.
All right, Tom, thanks for watching CBS 7 News at 9 on the CW. We've got more news coming up tonight on CBS 7 News at 10.